socialism through the public schools. They get 99% of the. Hey, I got a question real fast before we move to the census discussion. Is Epic Charter School considered to be a government core service?
Yes, because it's not it's yes and no. It's in a quasi middle ground, but they are taking they are taking socialist money. They are taking our public funds. Money.
I found that.
And that is it makes them no different than any other that you are forced to pay for.
Let's qualify terms. In the Oklahoma Constitution, which none of us are big fans of.
Right.
So to call yourself a constitutionalist in
Well,
Oklahoma,
pick your battles.
but the Oklahoma Constitution says the government shall provide a common education.
Yes.
So does that make
It
it a
even uses the
constitution?
word
Article
free.
13, if anybody wants
It
to look
even
it up.
uses the word free, which I was
Yeah. And so in that sense, yes, it's constitutional. You know?
But it is subject to the U.S. Constitution, in which we have property rights, and therefore it makes it unconstitutional.
Okay, I got one question. And so, you know the difference between an employee and and a 1099, because it's defined.
Independent contractor.
Is there a same type of distinction at that higher level of the schools getting the money? Because I know Epic gets less money than other schools or whatever. Do they determine?
You switch
it like
gears
that?
on this, but I
Does
think
that make
David
sense?
probably
Question?
understands that more
Yeah,
than
well,
I. But
Do they make a distinction of how much
the state,
curriculum?
the state government is a fallback to ensure that there's a certain level of funding. It first relies on local funding. I go up to Pryor every so often. It's an industrial park. I've got a client up there. Well, another client or another occupant there is called Google or Alphabet.
Right.
And they pay so much property tax, Google does, that the Pryor School District from local funding makes way beyond the state formula. And so the state says, you don't get any state money, you got enough locally, okay?
Right.
They are not alone. There's over 30 school districts in Oklahoma. Most of the rest of them are like out where the wind farms are in western Oklahoma. They're getting so much, and that's why we can't get rid of the wind subsidies out of our state government, because those wind farms provide some great public school funding, okay?
And the revenue from
from wind subsidies, which comes from the government, so it's the government paying to have government.
So my right pocket.
It's a shell game.
Follow that if you can.
So which pocket gets the money?
Exactly.
The left pocket or the
Exactly. But the thing
So-
is,
like a Twix bar.
but the thing is, they get to play with how the money is collected.
Oh, it's all
everything
about the
like that.
movement of the money.
It's
The
all about.
schools love the scenario they got out there with the wind farm, and that you don't interrupt it. It's a good thing. It's the way they. But so that's how it's set up, and so you've got your local funding, which is supposed to be the primary thing, the property tax primarily,
Right.
and then the state fallback, and then the federal government. I used to think they were a big player in this. They're maybe 10% of the funding formula on average. And so what Epic gets to draw from is the state and the federal. Now they were, up until last year, they were a little over $4,000 per student per year. With that big tax increase in funding, they went up to about $5,000. But now,
and I think this answers your question. That is less than a brick and mortar school receives per student funding.
And well, how do they calculate that difference?
Well,
between
yeah,
that?
I think that's a formula that I'm
deep,
not familiar with.
a
Maybe it
lot
doesn't
of it's
matter.
not done in the legislature. A lot of it's played with in the Department of Education and our state school superintendent.
Okay.
But just so you know, the Tulsa Public Schools, for instance, Oklahoma City Public Schools, the biggest ones, actually get some of the biggest funding. They're somewhere between 9 and 10,000. I think closer to 10,000 per student per year. Almost double what Epic gets. Okay?
Stop and think about that, folks. A classroom of 20 kids, 10,000 per. That's $200,000 per year per class, and they can't pay the teachers properly. and they can't provide the materials. This is just mind you. Remember, I disagree with the whole shooting match, but all of a sudden it's like, where does the other $150,000 go after you pay for the teacher? Where does all that money go? Ask that question.
You're spending all that money on schools. Couldn't we just lock the kids up for that money?
Transgender bathrooms are expensive.
You can incarcerate for $200,000.
Well, so yeah, you've got that. Now,
That'll
keep
teach
in
them.
mind, a lot of the kids whose families choose Epic do so because they don't like the environment that their children were subjected to.
Right.
That environment costs a lot of money. As bad as it is, you got to pay for the buses, you got to pay for the brick and mortar, the desks, the building, the lunch program, all of that stuff. It's really expensive to socialize these kids. Whereas you leave them at home and just pay for their internet if you have to, and lease them a laptop, out of their student education fund, you can make education really work well and give that kid a lot of freedom back. A lot of freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
It's not, in my opinion, the school's position to teach citizenship.
Yeah.
That's for the parents to teach. They need to be teaching rudimentary.
Well-
The parents have taught citizenship by sending the
Thank you.
kids to a socialist school.
Yeah,
So,
baby.
okay, let's
Nice
get that
job.
straight.